Okay, let's create our next two enemies. Here, so let me get those pulled up. All right, let's come to our enemy.t scene here. We're going to right click this and do new inherited scene. And let's name this enemy 02. And we're going to remove this script from here and save that. So inherited scenes, they can be a little bit restrictive, and they could cause you problems in the long run. But for a small little project like this, they're actually pretty useful. I've heard people complain about them, say they're buggy and there's problems with them, but as long as you need all these nodes on each inherited scene, then you're good. Like, so for instance, if I didn't want this engine particles 2D, I can't actually delete this on an inherited scene. So every inherited scene needs to have all the same nodes as the scene that it inherits from. And any changes that we make to this enemy scene will automatically change or add nodes, or whatever we do, it'll change the inherited scenes as well. So they can be really useful, but they're a little restrictive in that way. You also can't add any nodes to an inherited scene directly. Actually, can you? Oh, you can. Never mind. So yeah, so that's not a problem. So we have our enemy 02 here. Let's go ahead and add its own script here. And this is going to extend our enemy class. So everything that we've done in this enemy script, this enemy 02 scene is doing all of these things already just by extending this enemy class. So the only thing that we're going to be changing in this enemy 02 script is this shoot function. We're actually going to override how this enemy shoots, and instead of it just shooting one projectile, we're going to have it shoot in a different way. So this is really helpful that we already have that functionality of the enemy set up there. And all we need to do if we want it to shoot in a different way is override that shoot function. So let's come up to the top here and we'll have a const num projectiles. The int, we'll have this shoot 3 bullets instead of just 1. So we'll say var projectiles int equals num projectiles. I don't know why I need that. I actually don't need that. We'll say while num projectiles is no, now I know why I need it, because we're actually going to be changing that variable. So we'll say var projectiles equals num projectiles. We'll say while while projectiles is greater than 0, we will loop through and spawn projectiles. So enemy projectile instance. This is a rigid body 2D. It's equal to enemy projectile 02. Okay, so before we finish this, we need a different, we're going to make a different type of projectile for this enemy. So let's go ahead and do that. First, let's make this enemy move a little bit faster. We'll have him move -50 instead of -40. We can also come up to the sprite 2D here and change this to enemy 02. And we can move this engine particle 2D to the back of that. We can also move its shoot marker up into the front of it here. Let's go ahead and save that. Let's make a new scene here. This is going to be a rigid body 2D. This is going to be an enemy projectile O2. This is going to be our second type of enemy projectile. So on here, we're going to have a sprite 2D. And we're going to have a collision shape 2D on that. And we're also going to have a GPU particles 2D on that, as well as a timer. So let's call this the despawn timer. And we'll set that to 10 seconds and auto start. For this sprite 2D, let's go ahead and grab this enemy projectile 2, put that on there. And then our collision shape 2D, we can do a circle shape and make that match. So let's come to our GPU particles 2D here. And let's make the amount 128. Let's assign it the star 2x2 texture. Let's make lifetime 0.35. 6 FPS of 0, interpolate off. Let's do a new particle process material on here. Let's do a lifetime randomness of 0.35. Do an emission shape of a sphere with a radius of 2.5. Come down to gravity, turn that off. We're going to do a scale curve here. Come here to scale curve and do a new curve texture, click into that, and then click on this curve itself. And these will just fade out over their lifetime to 0. And then we can do a color ramp on this. So let's click into this gradient here. And we will start off having these match basically the color of our projectile at the start. So like a gray like that. And then at the end, they will go to black or almost black. All right, so that should be good. Go ahead and save that under projectiles, enemy projectile O2. So now we have that second type of projectile here. Let's come to our enemy script and we're going to preload that. So enemy projectile O2 scene. It's going to be a packed scene equal to preload. Grab that enemy projectile O2 scene. And now we can come back to our enemy O2 script, and this is where we want to spawn in that enemy projectile O2 scene as a rigid body 2D. So let's give this a rand rotation on these when we spawn them. Between negative 45 degrees and 45 degrees. So let's do enemy projectile instance dot rotation degrees is equal to our rand rotation. Enemy projectile instance dot linear velocity dot y is equal to negative of our rand rotation. Enemy projectile instance dot global position is going to be equal to our shoot marker global position. And then we can do get node root game projectiles add child. Add that enemy projectile instance on there, and then we will do projectiles minus equals 1. So this will loop through here. It'll spawn 3 projectiles, and they will have a random rotation, and they will shoot off in random directions. Also, we need to come to our enemy projectile O2's rigid body here, turn the gravity scale to 0, and turn its initial x linear velocity to -100. Okay. And just so that we don't have any problems right now, let's turn the collision mask off. We're not going to set up layers just yet. We're almost there, but so these don't collide with each other, let's make sure we turn the mask off. And so there's our enemy O2. Let's go to enemy scene and create a new inherited scene here. Rename this enemy O3. Remove the script from that, and we will save this enemy O3. And now we can add a new script back on there. Let's change the sprite to the enemy O3 sprite. And we can move its engine particles 2D around to the back there. We can move its shoot marker into the front here. And its collision shape, we need to fix that. So let's rotate that 90 degrees and we will just make it match up with the ship like this. And also on our enemy O2, we need to fix its collision shape as well. So we'll rotate that 90 degrees and we'll just have that match up with this one as well. Okay, so this is actually affecting all 3 of these shapes. So what we need to do for this collision shape is actually we need to come in here and we can't make it unique. So instead we're going to clear it and then we're going to add a new one in because these were sharing the same collision shape resource. So it was that when we were changing it on one, it was changing it on all 3, and that's not what we want. So let's go ahead and clear that and then give it its own resource there. And then on enemy O3, let's clear this and then give it its own capsule shape here. And then let's make sure our enemy, original enemy, let's fix this. Okay. So let's go into the enemy O3's script here. And this one's actually going to be like a heat-seeking shot. So it's actually going to shoot at the player. So we need a reference to the player itself. So let's do onReadyVar player equals get node root game player. So that's our player scene. So we have a reference to that. Let's override the shoot function here. We'll do var enemy projectile instance as a rigid body 2D equals enemy. Oh, we need to extend enemy here. Enemy projectile scene, enemy projectile O2 scene dot instantiate as a rigid body 2D. Enemy projectile instance dot global position is equal to our shoot marker global position. And then we can do get node. You know, because we're referencing this so many times, we might as well make it an onReady var on the enemy script itself. So let's come up here into the enemy script and do an onReady var. This is the projectile parent, and it's just a node, and that's equal to get node root game projectiles. So we can just have a reference to that instead of getting node every time. We'll have a reference to it like this. And here we can do that as well. So add child. It's not recognizing it because we didn't save the script. So now it recognizes it. So let's do var direction as a vector2 is equal to our player.global direct our player.global position. We need to say our player is a character body 2D. That's why it's not giving us autocomplete on this. If we tell it it's a character body 2D, then it will give us autocomplete there. Minus our global position dot normalized. So this is the direction. This is a vector direction from our global position to the player's global position. And then we will do enemy projectile instance dot linear velocity equal to direction. And we're actually going to need a constant up here. Let's have projectile speed. Float equals 100. We don't want any magic numbers here. So times projectile speed. Then we will do enemy projectile instance dot rotation equals direction dot angle. And then we're going to need to add pi on here. So if we didn't add pi, it would be facing backwards. So adding pi will make this face towards the player. So the rotation is correct, correctly facing the sprite towards the player instead of away from the player. Okay, and that should be it for shooting with the third type of enemy. Let's come into the enemy manager here, and here we can do enemy 02 and enemy 03. So those will start spawning in. And let's test it out. So there's the different type. This one should shoot 3 bullets in at random angles. That's good. Let's see if we can get this one. This one should shoot right at the player. And it is. They're bouncing around all weird. Okay, yep. So the enemies are spawned in there correctly. Let's go ahead and fix all that wonky collision stuff and work on destroying things now with our bullets and projectiles.